Whether it's sofas, cars, fridges or dryers, reports on this programme and in the papers do make you wonder why more and more of the products in and around our homes suddenly seem to be dangerous. A stream of headlines have suggested all manner of everyday devices are at risk of catching fire. And there appear to be particular issues with some of the electrical items we all keep plugged into our increasingly high-tech homes. As mum of two, Jasmine Hannis knows all too well. She lives in South Wales, and in September 2017, as thousands of us do every day, she went online to buy a replacement charger for her phone.
I just searched on eBay a charger to fit my own phone. I came across one, they said it was compatible, received it in the post a few days later.
Though the charger wasn't made by her phone's manufacturer, it was clearly sold as compatible. But just 3 days after it arrived, spending less on a cheaper charger proved in this case to be very much a false economy. Jasmine had plugged her phone into the charger by the side of her bed. Then at 3 a.m, the baby woke in the next room and she got up to settle him.
Walked back to my bedroom, took my phone off charge because it was fully charged, switched the extension lead off by the wall.
Confident she'd been conscientious by switching the charger off at the mains, Jasmine was keen to get back to sleep. But in fact, it was good fortune that she was awake.
I laid back down and I could hear this popping sound, but I didn't think anything of it. So I settled back down and then that's when it happened. It just exploded.
Despite the charger being switched off at the mains, its plug had burst open.
The charger was apart, the prongs was still in the extension lead, and there was smoke everywhere and sparks, so I'm sure that it could have caught fire if action wasn't taken when it was.
Jasmine quickly moved the charger away from anything flammable, but the incident left her shaken.
If we were both asleep that night, we probably would have died of smoke inhalation before the house caught fire. I would have lost everything, my children. My mother went to bed crying, thinking of the worst that could have happened.
The charger may have been a fraction of the cost of a branded one, but as Jasmine had bought it from a UK-based trader, she can't see why that should mean a shortcut on safety.
I thought, yeah, this is a cheap one, but that doesn't matter because you still don't expect them to explode just because it was cheap. I just don't understand how they're able to get away with selling these products that are generally not safe.
But it isn't just chargers bought online going up in smoke. These are the dramatic images that hit the news just last month, when a charger bought from the high street led to a devastating house fire at this young family's home in Bournemouth. Mum Donna spotted the charger in her son's bedroom was overheating and quickly unplugged it. But shortly after, the bedroom was on fire and the family had to flee their home. That device was one of many chargers sold as compatible for Apple products like iPhones. Campaigning charity Electrical Safety First issued a warning about such products 6 months ago, saying these non-branded replicas can frequently prove to be dangerous.
We've seen it on time and time again when we've done our own investigations. We found that fake, substandard, cheap chargers often have substandard components, missing components, and all of those things can lead to fire risks, explosion risks, and severe electric shock risks as well.
In fact, Electrical Safety First's investigations found that 98% of fake or imitation Apple chargers failed their safety tests.
The things that we actually found was really poor quality construction, wires that were breaking off the connections, that could be a short circuit and a fire risk.
Of course, chargers are just one of many electrical gadgets and items that, in recent years, we've heard could unexpectedly catch fire. From tumble dryers, which together with washing machines are said to cause more fires than any other appliance.
My husband said to them, it's the tumble dryer, there's 2-foot flames coming out of it.
To fridge freezer fires, which we looked at in 2017. This shocking case led to the death of resident John Wilson and was attended by Manchester Fire and Rescue Service. Station manager Jim Bridge has witnessed a worrying increase in these types of incident.
In Greater Manchester, we've noticed a 6% rise in fires from all electrical sources in the past year.
In fact, officers here are so worried that they've upped the ante when it comes to making sure we know how to protect ourselves against faulty or dangerous products. They've set up their own demo at their training centre to show you what you shouldn't do.
Multiple devices left on charge, unattended, plug sockets heavily overloaded, phones left on charge near soft furnishings.
And to warn of the possible consequences.
This is exactly the same room, but after the fire that's been caused, by people leaving electrical appliances charged and leaving things close to soft furnishings. These are results that we find day in, day out in Greater Manchester and across the country due to those dangerous practices.
It's not just Manchester firefighters that are concerned. In North Wales, the fire service issued this shocking video to raise awareness of how a faulty charger, in this case with a frayed cable, can send a bedroom up in flames in minutes. And in February, Electrical Safety First published figures showing that across mainland Britain, 13 fires per day are caused by faulty and recalled electrical goods.
We see the number of fires going down, but electrical fires remain quite scarily high.
So the big question is, why are we seeing so many fires of this nature, particularly when our safety standards are said to be so high?
The law requires manufacturers to put only safe products on the market, but we do see lots of products that clearly do go faulty and they lead to a fire or electric shock risk. So there are issues out there that need to be sorted out.
It's easy to point the finger at some online retailers for selling goods that may not meet the required UK safety standards. And while that is a factor, you could equally argue that it's our own desire for a bargain that's fueled the market in cheaper, poor quality goods, leading us to buy substandard knockoffs simply because they're much cheaper than the branded alternatives. But let's not forget big-name manufacturers have had their share of risky products too, with Samsung and Whirlpool just two of the familiar companies who've been embroiled in high-profile recalls or warnings as a result. However, the way that manufacturers typically handle recalls is something we've questioned on this series before, and Electrical Safety First firmly believes it needs to get better.
The recall system in the UK is woefully short of what we'd expect to protect consumers. 80 to 90% of affected items are still in consumers' homes and they're unaware, and all those items can lead to shock risks and fire risks. We need a simple system where consumers can register their products automatically so the manufacturers can contact us. We also want to see the government to have a central recall database so that we can point consumers to, so we can check to see if our products are safe. But at the moment, the recall system really needs substantial improvement.
Well, it's partly in response to such criticisms that in January, the government announced the creation of a new office for product safety and standards, which it said will give consumers the highest ever levels of protection. It's too soon to know if that's really what will happen. But in the meantime, Martin at Electrical Safety First says one thing we can all do to lower the risk in our homes is avoid those cheap replicas and shell out for the real McCoy.
Branded manufacturers go to lots of lengths to make sure their products have got all the right componentry. They'll use test laboratories to get the certification to make sure those products are indeed safe before they get into consumers' hands.
And that's something that Jasmine would definitely agree with.
It's definitely changed my mind about buying cheaper chargers. All phones come with their own charger these days. I just hope that this one doesn't break, but if it does, I will be buying genuine. I won't be buying any fake cheap ones online anymore.
Well, I think you'll agree, some really frightening circumstances there. And actually, my Christmas lights went on fire in the house once and actually burnt the whole bottom of the house. But there you go. Well, when we spoke to eBay about the charger Jasmine bought, it told us that as a marketplace, it doesn't have physical possession of the items listed for sale by its members, which is why its employees work with authorities all over the world to remove listings for products that they deem unsafe.
eBay also told us that it spends millions of pounds on protecting customers, and it works hard to educate sellers on their obligations to comply with regulations. If sellers fail to do that, it says it'll take action, suspending or removing them wherever they're based.
Well, Alex Neil from the Consumer Group, which joins me now. And I have to say, Alex, I am staggered by the statistics that surround this story. For instance, apparently between 2015 and 2016, there were 1,380 fatalities and injuries and over 15,000 fires caused by electrical gadgets. Now, the government is telling us that actually here in the UK we have some of the strictest safety laws in the world. Sounds to me they're not actually being strictly enforced.
Yeah, it's absolutely shocking, isn't it, to hear those stats and obviously to see what's happening and the devastation caused by these fires. But the government have set up a new office, but really there are some major
We should say
problems.
that's the Office of Product Safety and Standards, which we heard about in the film.
That's right. So that is supposed to set out what the rules should be here and then work with the enforcement bodies to make sure that any unsafe products are taken out of people's homes. But the bottom line is, at the moment, the standards often aren't tough enough or then being enforced. So people are living with products that are potentially lethal.
But who is actually responsible for enforcing these regulations? Because as I understand it, businesses do actually have legal obligations, and that's not just companies like eBay or your local shop or your local wholesaler. Anybody who is actually selling anything which is seriously faulty, they not only can face a fine, they can actually face imprisonment.
Absolutely. So the rules are set out and businesses of any size need to abide by them. The problem you've got, though, is that the people that need to enforce the rules are often overstretched, under-resourced
This is
trading
trading
standards
standards
officers, yeah, and they're off, you know, it's a real David and Goliath situation. They can often be fighting against ginormous firms who have bigger budgets and much more at stake. So it's really, really not a great system, and until that's fixed, I just think this problem is going to continue.
I mean, one that actually came out of the film is that there are still products out there that have had a recall on them. But, I mean, for instance, there's still apparently, I gather, 1 million fire risk tumble dryers that were identified 2 years ago. Why is there nowhere that the consumer can go to check whether or not every piece of electrical equipment that they have in their house is the subject of a recall or is thought to be unsafe?
Yeah, absolutely. And the case with Whirlpool is shocking for two reasons. Because in one case, actually, those tumble dryers, it's clear they're unsafe. There's a programme of modification going on to try and fix them. But actually, it's not a recall. So they're still in people's homes and it's not subject to a recall. But then even if it was subject to a recall, we're just finding that often doesn't work. And as was said in the video, you know, 80% of products will still be in people's homes at the end of a recall as well.
Well, the Whirlpool are subject to a safety warning, but the fact is that there is nowhere a central point that people can go to check on all of these things, is there? I actually been looking at the work that the London Fire Brigade are doing. They've come up with an 8-point plan to make homes a lot safer. We heard there how Manchester and also in Wales they're doing so much work. Does the government actually need to collate all of this information and say we've got to get tougher on this because consumers need to be kept safe?
Yeah, the government know about this. It's not new news. There's a big review as well. So they need to get tougher and actually do something. We need to see some action now from this new office if we're to believe that things are going to get better for customers.
Well, let's hope that is exactly what does happen.